Okay. We're here in Paxton at the Paxton High School in the Media Center. This is our third meeting of the redistricting committee. We have at least two more meetings scheduled, one in Santa Rosa Beach and one in Defuniak Springs. And we will, in all likelihood, probably have a third meeting to follow those two. It just depends on how we progress from here. With that, also welcome. We have a few people here so far in attendance, and then we have our Zoom viewers, and we welcome you and we welcome your participation as we go through this procedure. All of the committee members, all 10 members are present. So we do have a quorum. And before we start with the agenda items, for those who are, I guess, first-time viewers and first-time audience members, we'll just refresh our purpose here. I'd like, if you would, I'd like to get Mr. Atkinson to just briefly give an overview of the committee and the purpose of the committee. Mr. Atkinson.
Yes, in the redistricting process, governments are required to review their existing political districts after the receipt of each census. The commissioner and the school board each appoint representatives and is tasked with conducting such review and proposing necessary changes back to those boards for final approval. This committee is holding community meetings across the county to receive public input and allow the opportunity to observe this process. The committee has set November 4th as the date it intends to finalize its recommendation, so that each board will have it in hand by November 15th, 2021, and can adopt it by the end of the calendar year.
Thank you. Any questions with that? That's sounds pretty straightforward. All right, agenda items. Item 1 is the review request to approve the minutes of the September 16th, 2021 regular meeting. You've had a chance to review those minutes. Are there any additions?
Motion to approve.
Deletions?
Second.
Have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Agenda item 2, presentation of committee maps, ideas, or suggestions. We have a pretty large sampling of maps that have been submitted. I want to again thank the GIS department and Mr. Kevin Laird for accommodating. Looks like you've had a busy week or so, Kevin.
Yes, sir.
So we'll start with redistricting map. I'll leave some of the numbers off, just 2A being the last 2 digits. And I think this is a map that's survived, if I could say that, from our last meeting.
I would make a motion that we discard this map. After the last meeting, and you may recall, there was an argument between me and I believe Mr. Nelson about this, where you jumped over 2 districts and moved District 3 down south today. I went and read the statute. I read the case law on this, and I read the tutelage that's put out by the League of Counties, which I think should be supplied, at least the tutelage by the League of Counties and the statute. Probably all the members ought to have it. This would not survive judicial scrutiny. You can't jump a district over another district and move it south. There's
Mis-
nothing that, my reading of the case law, and I talked to Clayton 2 days ago about this, and he agreed with me. So I would make a motion that we discard 2A.
I want a second motion for discussion because Mr. Shipman, I want to make sure we all understand, we didn't never discuss assigning districts at the last meeting. We specifically said we weren't picking districts at the last
And
meeting.
I argued.
We
with
were just
Clayton-
doing numbers.
I argued with Clayton about, well, not argued, actually, I talked to Clayton about that, and he agreed with me.
You talking about Clay?
I mean, Clay, we should be drawing maps with the districts in them. You only get to renumber districts if it districts out of their district, a majority of the elected commissioners.
All I'm
So I-
saying is that you said we had an argument about moving a district and we didn't have no such argument because we didn't discuss moving a district. We just discussed numbers.
Well, 2A puts District 3 where District 5 was and jumps over 2 other districts. So I make a motion that we discard 2A. 2B is similar map, except it has the districts basically configured where they were in the first place.
Can we deal with
Okay,
one
we
at a
have,
time?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, let's deal with one at a time.
Yes, sir. Right now, we have a motion and a second.
Now I'll withdraw myself.
Okay, so we have a motion to strike this map 2A at this time. Is there a second? And we can revisit
I'm gonna do a second,
all or,
I want to do a second on that, but I want to explain why. That map takes 2 commissioners out of their district and also takes 2 school board members out of this district. And I don't think that's our job.
so we have a motion and a second to strike map 2A. Let's go for public comment regarding that map 2A. Anyone present that wants to speak on the motion, strike 2A?
I'm Lenny Scott, and I will just affirm what Gary has said. I looked it up as well, and that map looked a little odd. So I affirmed what you're.
Could you state your name again, ma'am, so we could get that on record?
Lenny Scott.
Lenny Scott? Okay, thank you, Ms. Scott. Any of the Zoom participants wish to speak regarding the motion on 2A?
See it right there. And all you have on there is Ms. Barano for the record.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Harris isn't, you know,
Okay. So back to the committee. Any further discussion on striking 2A? All right, we'll call for vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, likewise. Motion carries. So 2A is no longer considered. Map 2B. Which is pretty much at first glance, same configuration, just assigning districts, assigning District 4, the Miramar Beach area, District 5, Point Washington, Santa Rosa Beach, all the way to Inlet Beach.
Motion to strike.
We have a motion to strike.
Second, same reason.
And a second. Anybody in attendance wish to speak?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Well, thank you. Why are we striking this one? Can we have? a
Because it's
discussion?
redistricting a commissioner and a school board member out of their district.
Oh, is it? Okay, so 5 is here, 4 is here. Those are normal.
I tell
So
you,
you're talking about it's moving Cray down south. of the bay,
That's
but
taking him out of his district,
But south of the bay is. his
right?
district.
And it's also, but it's taking him, where he lives, where his home is taking him out of that district. So he wouldn't be able to run it.
Well, he can get an apartment in his district.
That's what's been going on in the county for years, and it shouldn't go on. You
Well,
should
it
have to
is.
live in your district for at
Well,
least a year
I'm
for
I'm
that.
actually with you on that, but as of right now, it's legal for them to do that. And when they're running, they don't even have to be in their district. If they win, then there is a certain time that they have to move into their district. Is how I understand it. I could be wrong, but that's how I understand it. So,
But the rules that they gave us, the book that they gave us,
yeah.
it tells you in there, it gives you some guidelines. That tells you, you should not district a commissioner or a school board member out of their district. And I'd be glad to let you look at it when we get through.
Yeah, I would like
Yeah.
to see that.
And there's
I think-
also,
I think we're gonna have some issues though,
Yeah.
because of what we want to see happen south of the bay and all of Walton County, but I mean, that's gonna directly affect District 4.
Yep.
So we're gonna have to come up with some kind of dialogue to reach a compromise on that. Is just my input.
I think, I'll just throw an idea out there, but I think our, and Mr. Atkinson, you can correct me if I'm wrong, our statutory requirements is going to be, is getting this population
exactly,
per district as close to the optimal level as we can. And I think to move this thing along, for now, we need to concentrate on the districts, the boundaries, and I think the fine tuning of incumbency, things like that. I think that's something that we can work out relatively quickly. But if we don't, with this many maps, if we don't keep rolling and try to concentrate on the population, we won't be out of here. They'll turn the coffee machines off at Tom Thumb before we get out of here. So if we could, let's just,
Can I ask a question on the population variance, what's allowed? If that was in your handbook or whatever.
it gives you some guidelines. You want to try to get them as
Was it
close
10?
to even for each district as you can.
Okay,
They don't have to be
like a
perfect.
5%
Yeah.
variance.
Yeah.
Well,
I think it
under
was
the,
10%.
Let me just say that, I think you've got a motion and a second. He seconded it, his reasoning would be up for the board whether or not to adopt those reasons at this point. Obviously, it is very much follows 2A. And so I'm not sure the reasoning for if you adopted 2A, how you don't adopt 2B. To me, they're
well,
not the same.
I-
yeah, so we have a motion and a second.
can we discuss on the board?
Yeah, was there, well, we were, I'm sorry, Ms. Scott, were you finished with your comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to know what the variance was for population before we get started.
I believe it was referenced as 10%
Yeah.
at our last
That's what
meeting.
I thought.
Yeah.
So I was focusing really on this one, is to be on those variants.
Yeah, 10% between the low and the high, I thought.
Uh,
10% spread, if you will, low to high.
How do you want to proceed with the board?
Any comments from Zoom?
Ms. Morano?
Ms. Morano, are you there?
Mute, okay?
Oh, Ms.
And I'll,
Morano?
yeah, and I'll start the video. I'm sorry, it just takes a while, and I think you see me now. Is that correct?
We do.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to thank you for having Zoom. It seems like I'm the only one. I wanted to thank that gentleman who agreed to have it in Paxton to have Zoom, and I appreciate you all being at the high school. I am in Tampa. I could not make it physically, so I do appreciate this time. We're looking at 002B. I think my question is, I'm looking at Defuniak Springs, and it looks like that's in 2 districts. And I think the goal, and please correct me, was to look, Gary, I think you wanted that, to look that both cities, Defuniak and Freeport, would be in their own district. Am I correct on that?
Well,
We have almost a dozen maps to go through just tonight, Ms. Morano, but yes, that has been mentioned.
it might help if what we did the last meeting, I asked for this map, and all it is is the map that was struck with putting 3 back where it would have been based on existing districts on this map and 5 where it should have been. I think if we go on to some more maps, we're going to see that because we had discussions about trying to get municipalities in one district. And we had discussions about trying to tighten the numbers up because I went and read all this stuff. And what it says is if it's 3% or less variance from the ideal up and down, there is no judicial scrutiny at all on the numbers. If it's between 3 and 10, there can be, but the court can consider other factors. If it's over 10, it triggers judicial scrutiny. That's the way I read the law. So some of these are pretty, I mean, there's none over 10, but some of them are up like over 7 in a variance. We just did this to start with a place to then tweak. So I'm in favor of us striking this one because I think if you look at the next map, it's then taking this map and tweaking it to try to arrive at some of the goals that we talked about at the last meeting.
Mhm.
So I'm in favor of striking this one. And I also, I don't think, my understanding of the law when I read it, and Clayton, please correct me, it's not that we're not supposed to play games just to intentionally try to move somebody out of their district. But we are supposed to start with existing districts and redraw them for purposes of balancing the population without consideration as to how that impacts existing commissioners. You're not supposed to jump districts. You're not supposed to be gerrymandering them to make a district for an existing commissioner or for somebody who wants to run for a commission. And in Trey's case, and don't get me wrong, Trey is my friend. I raised a lot of money for Trey when he ran last time. But where Trey lives right now isn't in the current District 4.
Well, let's go back to Ms.
So
Morano.
I don't think that
She-
is.
Ms. Morano,
not to do it.
You were saying-
All right, all I'm saying is, you asked for an opinion on this map, and I would say strike it only because, and I'm using that, the Defuniak is in 2 districts. But I do like that District 4 and District 5 have remained the same on this map. So thank you. And I'll leave and then come back on another map, I guess, right? Okay,
That's the plan for now. Thank you.
all right, you're welcome.
We have a motion and a second to strike 2B. Any discussion, further discussion?
Yeah, I don't know, that's my usual talk out of turn, but that was what I said.
Further discussion? Call the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed likewise. 2B. is stricken.
10 left to go.
Okay, moving on to map 2C. South Walton stays the same as the previous map. All of Peniac Springs city limits look to be included. Over to about, what's that, King Lake Road. All of that is District 3. Any comments? Public comments from, and we can circle back to these later. Any comments at this time? And there, Ms. Morano. Do you have any comments at this time?
No, sir, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Back. Board, you want to mull this one over and move to the next one?
I moved to strike it and I want to explain why. Because if you look, this map I did And the next one I did, I started with that one map and I sat in Kevin's office, probably getting tired of it, trying to make the numbers work. And this one, we made progress. We got the Funiac all in one district, we got Freeport all in one district. But the numbers, there's still a lot of variance on this one. If you look at District 4 is 7, again, 7.2 above the optimal. So I've refined, if you go through some more maps, I refined all this as we went.
So we have a motion, and do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. To strike 2C. I'm already lost. Did we already do public comment on 2C?
I was gonna bring up the population variance as well.
Okay,
I almost think, Patrick, that could we do it where when we go to a map, whoever is proposing it has an opportunity to explain?
well, we can in the discussion, but we don't know if the person who proposed or submitted the map is in this room.
Well, can I barge out a turn if it's one I drew and explain why I think I had a better reiteration?
As long as
now?
we don't get bogged down, and we'll come back in discussion.
Because we're gonna keep going through reiterations I did, and
Okay.
I tried to refine them as I went.
So in the
I
shipment
don't think there's a
revision,
problem with him identifying, he wants to identify which map. he
Sure,
drew, But he
sure.
cannot make the other.
They're actually supposed to be confidential, right?
But if he wants to make it.
sure.
I think that's it.
I mean, all I'm trying to do is, there's a lot of these that I did, I kept trying to refine them to get the numbers closer. And if you look, when we get down the road, you'll see a lot of these maps are similar. It's just kind of moving the numbers around. And so I moved to strike this one because I still didn't have the numbers
Okay.
Which number is that?
to see.
2C, Ms. Morano, are you still listening? Wait,
All right, yes, I agree with Gary. Thank you.
okay. So we have a motion and a second to strike 2C. All in favor, signify with aye. Aye. All opposed likewise. Motion carries. We're out of the 2 series. If I'm looking at this correctly, we're on 5B. Map 5B. And Mr. Shipman, if this is a Shipman revision, you can,
I actually don't think this is one of mine.
okay. So South Walton still looks to have the 2 districts as the prior maps. Looks like a little bit of change north of 98 right there on the west end of 38. But substantially pretty much the same layout.
I would move to strike this one because again, the way this is drawn, now we get District 1 is over 7% below optimum. I just feel like the numbers are too far off.
Second.
Motion in a second. Public comment? Yes, ma'am. Ms. Scott.
Because I'm looking at this map in particular and just doing the quick math for District 4 and 5. It doesn't appear that 1, 2, and 3 are going to meet that population variance. If we keep 4 and 5 separate from north of the bay, which is what most people that I've spoken with desire this redistricting opportunity, then I don't see how, I mean, I don't know all these areas, but I don't see how we're going to be able to tweak that to get the populations where it can be challenged.
I think you're right. It's a good point. Yes, ma'am.
We're probably gonna have to button it up where, you know, it's kind of the last resort. This is what we determined.
Okay.
Well, actually, we recommend it to the BCC and the school district, so that's who the courts get to argue with, not us.
Okay.
So going back to Ms. Morano, 5B.
Yes, I still would want to leave that without striking it until we go through all the maps. That's my opinion.
So we have a motion and a second back to the committee for any further discussion.
I know we're on one at a time, but I think as we get further down on some of the maps, the numbers get better while still accomplishing a lot of the goals.
What
We
if
have
we
a
just put this
motion.
one on hold until we go through the rest of them?
Right now, we've got a motion and a second to strike.
I tell you what, if it'll move us down the road, I'll withdraw my motion. We'll put it on hold and we can return to it, right?
Yes.
When we get to that map.
Let me ask you a question. If we strike them out, can we come back to it anyway?
Well, it would be a new proposal.
Yeah, a different number.
Well, we come back and revote it. So
Yeah,
you're
it's
just,
not
just
like
because
you
you're
can't.
striking nine doesn't mean that somebody else can offer it at a later meeting.
Right,
That's
yeah.
right.
Kevin has a file of these from when we started, so yeah, that'd be no problem.
It's almost like, it would be easier in my mind. It will probably give a heart attack to Kevin. If we were sitting here, like when I went to Kevin's office, where you had a big TV screen and you could say, okay, well, the numbers aren't good there, but what if we move this and move this? I wish that were the process we were doing instead of like this.
I think it'd be more convoluted than what this is.
The problem
Because
with
you got
that
so
is
many
you
people
have
trying to move it around.
So Mr. Shipman has removed his motion, correct?
Yeah.
So we will leave 5B for now, and we will move to map 6A. Map 6A.
Mr. Chairman, that was at my request from a map from, excuse me, 2011, I believe it was. And I had asked that the new districts be put in over that map to see what the population.
Okay,
And obviously, it's not going to work, so I'll candidly remove or move to strike this map.
Second.
a motion and a second. Map 6A.
6A.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you got one district is 33% under optimal, there's no way it would withstand judicial scrutiny.
Any comment for the record, Ms. Scott? No public comment? None. Ms. Morano, could you hear us? Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can, and I agree to strike that. Thank you.
Further discussion from the board? Seeing none. All in favor? Motion in second. Say aye. Aye. Motion carries 6A. is gone. Y'all are doing good. We're halfway. Map 7A. 7A. South Walton, pretty much the same. It's changed. It looks like north of 98 there a little. But
Well, I definitely don't mind speaking on this one. Of course, the only thing good about this one is that each city is in their own district. But still, getting back to our conversation of making the numbers work without letting a third touch across the bay. I don't know how you're gonna do it.
Let me ask you a question, since you're the Freeport City Manager. What do you feel is the benefit of having a single commissioner versus 2 or 3 or 4?
I don't necessarily.
I'm just
I don't
asking.
have an either or really. because
Okay, I'm just asking because I keep hearing that. I'm trying to
Yeah.
figure out if I was a city, I'd want 5 commissioners touching my city because I'd want all of them to want to make me happy, but that's just me.
I would say this one, though, the numbers are improving. Because now the variances, you have the lowest is 4.9% below optimal, and the highest is 6.3% above optimal. I would ask that we hold this and move on and look at some more maps, because at least the numbers are improving.
Mr. Shipman, you keep mentioning these optimal things, and is that like where are you getting that from? Because I sat on this redistricting committee in 20.
It's down in the left-hand corner.
No, where are you getting the rule from? Because I sat on the redistricting committee in 2010, and we actively looked for a rule to
All
fall within, and we couldn't ever
All
find
right,
one.
if you read the statute, which is 124,
124.
and if you read the tutorial that's put out by the Florida Association of Counties, and you read some of the interpretative case law, when they talk about where it says you're supposed to have absolute population equality is impossible, so it's supposed to be as possible or practical as you can. What the case law says is if it's 3% or less from what they call optimal, which just means the mean. If you divide, you got 5 districts, you divide the county population up by 5, you get a number, and ours is like 14,600.
Okay, excuse me one sec, because I'm trying to take some notes. When you say case law, are you talking about federal case law, state case law, attorney general's opinions?
Federal and state case law.
For Florida.
Well, most of it is Florida, but some of it you have to look at federal as well on this, because if there's a challenge, it's in the United States District Court.
Okay.
But when you look at this, you get the optimal means average.
Yes, sir.
Then what it says is if it's 3% or less variance, meaning the lowest district is no more than 3% below that average, and the highest district in population is no more than 3% above, there's no judicial challenge at all, with one exception, and that is if there was a manipulation to dilute minority voting.
So those 3%, 5%, 7% numbers, they're coming out of federal or state case law?
Both.
Or, okay, so there's 2 cases out there, and one of them says 3%, one says 7%, or there's the same case. I'm really confused. I'm not a lawyer, so I get confused easily about this stuff.
Why don't you let me explain the whole thing?
Okay.
And then you can ask me questions, and then
Okay.
I guess we can defer to Clayton, who's here as well. What it says is, when you take the average of the population, where all districts would have the same, if you divide it, which we recognize is probably impossible. What it says is if it's 3% variance off optimal or average, above or below between the districts, meaning the lowest district is 3% below and the highest district in population is 3% above, there is no judicial challenge, okay? Then the next category is the 3 to 10%. And the way I read the law, if it's between 3 to 10%, there could be a challenge. If it's above 10%, it will be presumed that there's a problem, although you could then come back and prove there's some extraordinary reason for it. So ideally, in my mind, we should try to get these numbers, and there are problems. Getting 2 districts, if you want all of south of the Bay to be 2 districts, it's impossible to get it within 3%. It just, I worked with the numbers, you can't do it. So the idea is the closer you get to the variance between the lowest and the highest being, like 5% is a heck of a lot better than 8% if somebody tries to challenge it. And that's why I keep looking at these numbers down here in the left-hand corner on the chart, where you look at, like, for example, this 7A, you have district, well, this one we didn't do numbers. Somebody did A, B, C, D, and E. I guess this must be. Anyway, it's the highest is like 6.5%, and the lowest is 5.1%. Well, That's better than the last one we looked at. It had like 7 and 8%. So you're getting the numbers closer. This still isn't ideal, but you're improving.
I have a question. Does it
Mr.
say
Ryan.
anything in the law about what the population might be in 5 years? So we get halfway through this process and the census isn't for 10 more years.
You know,
One side of the county completely grows and the other one doesn't grow at all.
I question that because we all know where certain areas of the county are going to grow. For example, we know that Freeport's going to be a lot bigger 10 years from now, but unfortunately, what I read, we're supposed to look at it based on that census because, and the logic is because we may think that Freeport's going to explode and St. Joe's going to get across the intercoastal and that area is going to explode. But then again, we never know. We may have what happened in 2005 down here and everything comes to a screeching halt for 10 years. So that's why I think you're limited to what the census numbers were.
Let me say this, keep referring to district court, you understand that 3% or 7%, and I don't disagree that there are probably district courts that have written that. I don't think there's any Supreme Court case at this point on those, and you know, there may be, if there is, fine. But whether the district court is here or whether the district court is in Wyoming may make a difference as to which, you know, the district court here in Florida may have not ruled, they may get a chance to rule on what they consider optimum in any litigation.
And I
So
apologize.
my position is that, yes, there is, you know, I don't disagree with you, there are court decisions out there. And as you know, each district court has the authority to make their own opinion.
Yeah,
As to what they consider optimum.
I probably should have made an answering Robert's question because you wanted me to distinguish between federal and state. Almost all districting challenges are in the United States District Court or perhaps appealed to the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. They are not state court decisions. If somebody chose to challenge what gets done here today, it would be in the United States District Court for the Northern District. Interestingly, some of the significant opinions on this that I've read were done by Mark Walker, who's the United States District Court judge from the Northern District, sitting in Tallahassee. And what I interpret, and certainly I'm not here to be the committee's lawyer, but I went back and read a bunch of stuff since I am a lawyer. If you're under 3, you're absolutely bulletproof. If you're over 10, you probably have a big problem. And the closer you are to 10 versus 3, the more likely it's going to be to judicial challenge. That does not mean if it can't make it work, if it's somewhere between 3 and 10, you can't do it.
I understand what you're saying, and yes, we want to get the numbers as close as possible. But I guess my question is, you're bringing percentages in, and are those on local county commission districts in which everybody can vote everywhere? Or are these cases that were brought because of the fiasco between the Republican and Democrat Party when they redistricted this last time, and it got thrown out and they had to start all over again?
Nothing I have read had anything to do with the last presidential election.
It's not the presidential election. It was before that when they redistricted in 20.
The cases
11 or
concerning the 3% versus the 10%, a lot of them have been around a long time.
Okay, well, we
And-
just
and
never
they're
found
not-
them last
They're
time.
not about, I don't see a distinction between whether you have at large like we do, or whether you have where you only vote in your district, because the whole idea behind the districting is so that all areas of the county have the opportunity to be properly represented. In other words, there's somebody that's required to live in their
Yeah.
area that gets elected. So don't misinterpret what I'm saying is we got to have everything below 3%. I'm just saying to you, the more we get off that 3%, the more likely it can be challenged. And if you get above 10%, it's definitely getting challenged.
Okay.
Okay, map 7A. Any further discussion from the committee on 7A? Do we have a motion of any sort? Do we want to?
I just said I'm in favor of holding.
Culling it or holding it?
Holding.
Holding.
Any public comments on 7A? None. Mr. Morano,
Yes, I do. Gary, when you were talking about 3%, 5%, and 10%, if I did my math right, this might be easier. What you're saying for 3% of 15,000 is 450, a difference of the number of 450. At 5%, there's a difference of 750. And at 10% of 15,000 is 1,500. So if we look at those numbers, 450, 750, 1,500, it looks like we're below 10% on those two districts on this particular map. Did I get those numbers right, Gary? I'm just putting it, instead of percent, I'm just putting it in numbers.
Optimal, each percent is 1,469. Sorry,
Yeah.
100.
Right, right. So that's the 10%, that if we stay below the
46 is 1%. And when you look at it, it's not between the bottom and the top, it's between what the median is, how much over or below that number you are. So if you're 438 below, you're 3% below the optimum. And if you're 438 above, you're 3% above. I don't know that we can get to the 3%.
No, I agree.
All I've been trying to do is when we have some of these maps where it's up there like 9%, can it withstand judicial muster? Yeah, it might, but the more you get up there, the more likely it gets challenged.
Oh, okay, so what the decision is to hold this map, and that I agree with that.
so any further comments from the committee on 7A? There are none, so 7A will stay in for consideration at this time. Map 8A.
Did we vote on that?
We don't need to vote on it.
We're just gonna keep it.
Map 8A.
Can I interrupt and make a suggestion?
Go
I
ahead.
know because Kevin's got plenty to do, but if he could just go ahead and modify these graphs for the future meeting, because we're probably gonna have another 10 maps in the FUNIAC that show that percentage offset. So then we don't all have to sit here with our calculators out and try to figure it out.
No, it is. It's down in the left-hand
Then
corner.
where am I missing it at?
It's down in your left-hand corner.
There. Got it. Thank you. See, he's got ahead of me.
Good idea, Mr. Nelson.
I gotta get better glasses.
Me too. Okay, map 8. Map 8A. Pretty much the same, South Walton, District 1. And, well, I guess that would be District A and District C on this. They have some slight changes there, as well as up in the city of Tepiniac Springs.
Well, again, and I don't want to. I think we need to be talking about district numbers, but assuming the colors went with what they were to begin with, and it's 2, 3, 1, 5, 4. I'm fine with holding this one.
Yeah, I'm confused on how we went from district numbers to district letters.
Somebody wants to move districts around.
I know, but I wanted to.
That was just discussed in the last meeting as a way of trying to streamline things.
So on the new one.
Yeah, we would have, they would, yeah, they will definitely have to be numbered before anything is decided upon.
So we're keeping 8A.
Where that,
on this one, the district that is District C. Looks like it goes over there and includes Villa Tasso that's over there on the far western north side of the bay, right at the county line. That's kind of strange, but
No, yeah, 8A.
Some of these I've got to switch to the big maps. It's just not.
so any from the public comments here in the room?
Is that though in Villa Tasso? Is that just like north of 20 on the reservation and the other part of actual Villa Tasso is District A? You see what I mean? Oh, yeah,
It's
you're right, Patrick. It's in the pink.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Miss Morano.
No comment.
Okay, no comment.
Well, I guess it means we can come back and try to because I agree. I don't, it makes no sense to me that Villa Tasso would be out there by itself on the bay. I think we have some others that are similar, so I'll make a motion to strike this.
So we have a motion to strike map 8A and a second. Further discussion from the committee?
My only comment would be it's a lot of area for a commissioner or school board member to cover. It goes all the way from the Alabama line to the bay.
And I want to point out too, you may not know this, some of the folks do. Most of this is Eglin Air Force Base. We don't have to fool with it. And on the other side, a lot of this is First American Farm, which is now Locust Plantation. That's 47,000 acres that goes from Highway 331 all the way to the River Swamp that commissioners don't have to worry with.
Yeah, all that orange.
The river.
Okay.
Yeah,
I said River Swamp.
I'm really speaking more to the fact that the commissioner is gonna have to drive down all the way down 331 and then all the way down 20 to get from one to the other.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. Motion carries. So 8A is out of consideration. Map 9B is the next map for review.
Can you,
A lot of changes on this one. Discussion.
I would like to retain this one for further discussion later if we need to. It puts a little bit of what we call in District 1 down south of the bay, but I mean, the numbers are pretty close.
Yeah, I like this map. The only problem I have, and maybe we keep it for discussion, because later on, I think there's another map that you keep a little bit to get the numbers right on one, but you have a gap here. And I think one of the things we're supposed to do is not have a gap, but you could accomplish what you're doing here by moving the little piece south of the bay
Sure.
east, so that there's a contiguous, and then taking 5 and moving that portion where there isn't anything but bunker south of the intercoastal, so that you got it contiguous, because you're not supposed to have like a segment of a district that's cut off
No, you're correct.
from the rest of the district by another district. But I think this is an example of where I like this map if we could tweak some of it to address that issue, because the numbers are pretty good on it. It's just, this is an example of where we look at it, from my mind, I look at it and say, well, you know, it's not bad, it accomplishes a lot of the things that we wanted. But there's this one issue that would have to get fixed on.
But too now, Gary, the guidelines tell you that you're not supposed to consider a body of water as the line. So that would not be, you know, a problem according to the rules that I've read out of that book they gave us.
It wouldn't if, the problem is, if you don't consider a body of water the line, but you have all of the yellow district south. And so if you drew a contiguous line through the water, like you're talking about, which I agree with you,
Right.
you still get cut off. This one area is cut off from the rest of the district.
But if you come from the north, there is no line that cuts it off.
I think you have to draw a line.
Like right now, the east end.
I think you have to draw a line like that. But this one is easily adjusted because frankly, up here, other than Bunker, there's no one there.
I would argue there are maps as we continue through this process that address what you're saying.
That's already changed.
Already make those changes.
Yeah, so I like this map. If we could hold it and come back
Yeah.
and tweak that one issue.
So we've got 9B as staying in consideration for now. Any public comments on 9B? Ms.
Yeah, well,
Morocco, did you hear us?
Yes, I do want to say something. Gary, are you referring to the purple line around 283? That's purple, that's now in District 5?
Yeah, what it is right now, currently, right now, that area that's purple around 283 and 331 is in District 1.
Okay,
That doesn't trouble me. It's just, I think you're supposed to draw like an east-west line here, and by having 5 go north of the intercoastal, you're cutting that area off from the rest of the district.
yeah, I agree, but looking, if we, to the gentleman with the hat, sir, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but District 5 on this one has over 500, it's 15,562. So if we added more, but then on the other way for District 4, if you move that over a little bit more, you're right. You know, I'm just looking at the numbers because if you add that purple, they're going to be way over 15,000. We have to take something away from District 5 then.
Well, I think what I'm suggesting we hold this, because if you go to further on maps, there's a map that has District 1 coming a little bit south of the bay, but everything that's north of the intercoastal that I think takes care of this gap problem, and I think it narrows the numbers too.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any more discussion? Mr. Gilbert?
Gary, based on that comment that you just made and my earlier comment about future maps addressing some of those things already, I'm gonna make a motion that we strike this one.
Second.
Okay. Well, let me just.
Discussion.
Motion and a second.
If you look over on a future map on 11B, it addresses that area down there, but it's very different than the map for the upper part of the county. What I was saying is I would be open to holding it and doing something down here with District 1 that was similar to 11B, but it doesn't trouble me, this other part. It's can you
So-
understand what I'm saying?
I do.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I just don't think we should,
9B?
we can keep it in the keep it in the pile for future consideration. If something comes up better, then we can call it. That's just my,
Well, what I was thinking is if you hold one that has a lot of things you like, but there's a problem with it, then you can use that for Kevin over here to then use it as his template.
We can,
for when you're
Exactly.
trying-
we can do that anyway. And we
Yeah,
don't,
I mean, we can.
Further discussion? Motion and a second. We'll call the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed likewise.
I,
Motion, okay. One opposed,
one opposed. So do we.
motion carries. 9B. Hey,
Keep it, all right? I just want to get the numbers off of them.
Yeah. well, it's-
I would move to strike this one.
this one's-
So this one, in my opinion, kind of defeats the purpose of having two districts that are primarily in the south.
and 2C.
And it also
No,
defeats
2C.
the purpose of trying to get this. And I know this may be diluted, and I'm not as solid on this one, but having the cities in one district.
a second.
Matt, are we on?
10A,
I know, catch up.
10A.
Okay. And
So 10A is displaying three districts south of the bay. Yes, three districts into the city limits of Freeport, two in Defuniak Springs. So a lot of changes on 10A. Are there any comments from the room? Yes, sir.
As far as like judicial, I'm just trying to learn more about it. As far as judicial scrutiny, like I've always thought the District 4 now, the one they got now is the strangest one because it like you got Choctaw Beach, then it chunks over to Miramar. Is that just me or is like, because like by the way the crow flies, I guess, you know, geographically it makes sense, but driving, you know, all the way around to stay in District 4, does that have anything to do with like the way?
Well, one of the
No.
comments at the last meeting, somebody made a comment, I don't remember who, about where you had to drive into somebody else's district to get
Yeah.
to your district. But one of the problems with this one, I think you also have the disconnect because you have two sections of District 4 that are cut off by District 5. And you can talk about the body of water, part of it's a body of water, but part of it is clearly District 5.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can do this the way it's configured.
Maybe my final question was, the last time we did redistricting, what was the logic to finalize the way it is now? Because it's kind of like this now. There probably was some kind of.
Well, 10 years ago, the population in South
Yeah.
Walton County was dramatically different than what it is today.
Actually, Chaz, most of the discussion last time was getting more representation south of the bay, expanding the districts to give more people opportunity to run.
Yeah.
That's how, Jerry Mickey ended up in office running in District 4. So,
Yeah, I was just.
but I mean, that was a lot of the discussion last time.
I guess I just keep hearing the word like judicial scrutiny and I'm trying to figure out like what do they care more about? is it like just the general like logic or how, if it makes sense?
The big thing they look at is the population that the census gives them. And that's what we're supposed to be trying to balance between 5 districts. That's all we're supposed to be doing.
Well,
And
there's 3 things, although there's not a lot of, you're supposed to look at trying to balance the population.
I think that's first and foremost.
Yeah. They're not supposed to draw it in such a way that you have one area of one district cut off by another district. And you're not supposed to, it's not a particularly large issue in this county, because if you look at the numbers, almost all minority voters are currently in districts 2 and 3, and most of the maps continue that way. But those are the issues that the court predominantly looks at. I don't know that in Walton County, unless we drew some really weird map, that there's a challenge on a clear attempt to dilute
I
minority
think one
voting.
thing the court look at is make sure that from a party standpoint, we're not making it such that one party is getting greater concentration than the other party. We're trying to keep, and in Walton County, may not have that much different because the numbers are Republican, Democrat, but that overall, they will make sure that both parties are treated equally in this thing too. And population being, I think, the first, then the parties, and don't want.
thank you for clarifying that.
Yes, sir. Ms. Morano, any comments regarding 10A?
Well, the interesting thing is, it never printed off for me. So if you could put that map up, I only got up to 9B that I printed out. Was this map added later? That they couldn't they couldn't send it out to the public?
There maps were being created as of yesterday afternoon. So there are a great number of them that are not available online.
Okay, well then can you show that? So I'm looking at it now and that does not make any sense to me at all. It's especially, my heart has always been in District 4 Miramar because I just don't think they're getting enough representation, and this is not representative of the needs of South Walton.
Well, I don't think you can. This one, the way it's drawn, where you have 5 come up through the middle of 2 sections of 4. I don't think that could survive a challenge, because one of the things you can't do is divide an area of a district with another district. You can't, the district has to be contiguous.
Or you said the proper districts not to do.
No, I'm saying right here, Clayton, you have 5 come up between 2 areas of 4.
Okay.
You have anything else, Ms. Morano?
I just agree with Gary. Number one, I'm disappointed I could not look at this before tonight. When you have these maps, you've got to get them out to the public so we can see them. Not the day of or the night of, and I couldn't pull it up. So I am not in favor of this one at all.
Motion to strike 10A.
Have a motion to strike. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? No further discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, likewise. Motion carries. 10A is removed. Map 11A, the next map consideration. And Jason, are you displaying that one? Can you see that one, Ms. Morano?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can for the first time. Thank you.
I would move to strike this one, because if you look at B and C, what happens is it's the same map that's just reconfigured to make the numbers I move you strike 11A, because what that accomplishes 11B and C are actually better.
So we have a motion and a second to strike 11A. Any further discussion? Any discussion from the public? Other comments? Ms. Morano?
No,
Yeah.
sir. No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, motion to strike 11A. No further discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, likewise. Motion carries. 11A is removed. We'll go to 11B.
Whoa.
And we'll give you a minute to display 11B.
I'll move to strike, and my primary reason to striking this one is, because the next one is a little bit changed variation of this, is that I think these communities along the north shore of the bay should be in the same district as Freeport, even though I realize Portland and Villa Paso and I guess Choctaw Beach and Basin Bayou aren't Freeport. You can't get to them in Walton County except by driving through Freeport, because it's just one road along there. Because all that north of there is Eglin. So the next map, 11C, kind of. So it's just a refinement of that.
Can you blow up that area within B? I see a little bit of purple.
No, it's not. I think that's. If you look at the next one over, the next map, it puts that area into the same district as Freeport. I just feel like that North Shore, it just seems logical to me that the North Shore should be in the same district as Freeport. Because there's no way to get to it except by driving through Freeport. And I would think that those people, people that live in that area.
But are we allowed to take that into consideration when figuring this out?
Sure we can.
Is that another one of those judicial review things or something?
No,
like
it's just not prohibited,
this?
Robert. I mean,
Did you make a motion for that?
yeah, I made a motion to strike it.
Just talking about
Motion to
11B.
Strike 11B,
Motion and a second. Brian second.
I second.
and there's a second. Any public comments on 11B?
Yeah, Gary, I guess I don't understand,
Go ahead.
you know, is it again that purple that's next to the yellow on District 5, that section right there?
No, I think if you look at the next map, 11C, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Because
Okay,
the next map just seems to make more sense to me. than this.
okay, all right.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further comments, Ms. Morano?
No, sir.
Okay, back to the committee for discussion. Any further discussion with the committee? There is none. All the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, likewise.
This one, we actually have,
Just a second. Map we're looking at.
okay,
It's okay. Map 11C. Next map for consideration.
this map, the percentage from optimal for all 5 districts is less than 3%. And there's no gaps. Because we closed, that's what I was talking about. You close the gap over here on, you still have that little bit of one south of A, but I think you have to have that. But you did it, but it's done in such a way that there's no gap where you have one district between them. And then it takes care of the issue of all this North Shore being District 1 with Freeport. And I think the variance on the numbers under this one is something like between the highest and the lowest is only like 400 people.
That's- What if, because you still have that, you got to drive through the yellow district to get to the purple district, right? District 5 to District 1. What if you took from 11A, that chunk, that corner there, Point Washington, I think is what that is. That would give you at least a contiguous trip down there through 331. Clean that up and you still have the north of the bay shore. See what I'm saying?
Gonna blow your numbers.
Yeah.
Would it blow them
Yeah, I
that bad
think-
though?
I think the problem was the
It'd be pretty
numbers,
big.
and also I was trying to address this issue in the corner right here, because you still didn't have that gap.
11, so he moves it over.
Yeah.
It's almost like we're not being consistent. We strike some maps because we have to drive through other districts to get to them, and then we let some maps stay. Is that what I'm?
There's a difference between driving through and having a gap.
Okay.
Driving through is something that would be, somebody expressed at the last meeting, they didn't think you should do that. It's not a prohibition. Having where one section of a district is cut off geographically from the rest of the district by another district
Yeah.
is prohibited.
Any further discussion on 11C? Any public discussion on 11C?
No, sir.
None? So you want to let this one remain?
Sure.
So we'll keep this one in consideration for the time being.
If that one could be put up on, somehow, we don't have copies of it. If that, the ones that were never put up publicly, could they be put up?
They will be added.
It will be added? Because these seem like they're gonna flop over to Defuniak next meeting, it seems like. Okay, I appreciate that.
I'll supply them to you. Keep up.
Actually, 12 A's.
Okay, map 12A. 12A is our next map for consideration. Can you see 12A, Ms. Morano?
Yes, sir.
Any discussion?
No, I think
When
that's
they
where
blow
he's
'em
currently
up.
living.
Yeah, where they blow them up.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Can you blow that up?
Can you scroll it down towards the bay?
Where Trey is,
Yeah,
it is green. You're right.
What I,
Wow,
So that's kind of close to what we got going on now.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that still leaves us with only one district totally south of the bay. I'd move to strike it.
Second.
Motion and a second to strike 12A. Any public comments?
I agree.
I agree.
Any further comments from the board?
Y'all do realize one of the things we've got to do is we're just gonna be recommending maps, and we probably need to be considering recommending a map that might actually get passed.
That is true.
What happens if they don't agree with this group's recommendation?
Things just stay how they are till 2023.
No, that's not. They have to, because of the wide variance in population. They could not accept our map. They will have to adopt a redistrict.
So they
Yeah.
could then pick one of these maps that they like, that maybe not one that we recommended and adopt.
They could redraw map that we presented within the restrictions that we have. But they could not just say, we're going to keep the districts the way they are. They must re-adopt or
Okay.
redraw the districts to try to balance the population.
But neither the school board nor the commissioners have to accept our
No,
suggestion.
no.
So it would, they could actually say, no, this is too far fetched, we're not gonna do it.
Right.
And they could appoint new people if they wanted to, or tell us to go back to work.
No, when we present our map that we recommend, the county commission would sit there and say, okay, we either accept this or we're gonna balance the population out by this different method. And whether or not that got challenged by judicial scrutiny then becomes how much they changed. For example, if we presented them a map where every district is within 3%, and then they redrew it and they had two districts that were 8%, and where there was a lot larger variance, they could, and it conveniently left them all in their districts, whereas ours, like district did somebody out, there's a good chance it would not survive judicial challenge. If, on the other hand, we present them a map and, like, let's just say they flip, there's a couple of these maps where 2 and 3 sort of flip flop. If you get what I'm saying, and they changed that and it really didn't affect the population very much. I don't think there's anything anybody could do about it. But our exercise is to try to recommend the
Let's
best
get back
map
to our business.
based on what we know.
So we were discussing 12A.
We finished 12 there.
Got a motion and a second.
Oh,
Motion and a second, and thank you for reminding me of that because I was lost there for a second. To strike 12A, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed likewise.
No.
No.
Motion carries.
wait a minute, what just happened? Did we strike 12A or no?
We struck 12A.
Okay. All right.
To be presented again later.
Map 13A.
I moved to strike this. It still has the problem that a map a little while ago had, and that is that you have two distinct areas of District 4 that are totally divided by District 5, prohibited. So I would move to strike it.
What map? I'm on the wrong map. That's
Second.
why I'm not
13A.
seeing it. 13A. That's why I'm not seeing the.
And also, what we've heard in comments, at least the 2 meetings I've been at, where the desire is that there are 2 districts totally south of the bay, it doesn't do that.
So you have that in the form of a motion to strike 13A.
Yes.
Is there a second to strike 13A?
I seconded it.
There's a motion and a second. Public comment on 13A.
Definitely strike it, in my opinion.
Thank you. Further discussion? None? All in favor of the motion to strike, signify with aye.
Uh,
All opposed likewise. Motion carries. A is removed. That concludes the,
Just have a summary of what you have left.
that concludes the maps that we had for consideration. Does that follow with what you have on the digital copies as well, Kevin, through the 2A and ending in 13A? Is that right?
It's all on this.
Okay. All right, so what did we do? Someone kept better notes than I did. I think 2A is out.
We have 5B is being held. 7A.
9B.
No, not 9B.
We have to say 90.
9B's out.
Okay.
11C. They have 3.
So we have 3 still in.
And Mandy, what
Huh?
maps did you indicate are remaining?
5B, 7A, and 11C are remaining.
11C, okay, 5B, 7A, 11C. Is that what everybody has? Okay. So,
I had a comment, what about 2B, the ones that we said to hold? Was that out, 2B and 2C?
Yes.
yes,
Okay, that was out. So you just have 3 remaining? Can you repeat that?
they are maps 5B, 7A,
And 11C, you're saying?
yes, ma'am, 11C.
Okay, so will they carry over to the Defuniak meeting plus some more maps?
They will, yes, ma'am.
All right, may I make a suggestion to Jason? Here we are, the day, September 30th. If you get late maps, they still need to be put up for the public, even as late as the day of. But maybe you need to tell who's ever submitting these maps, they need to get them to you the Sunday before or the Tuesday before. Is that possible to help us out?
Barbara, I think the problem is, for example, in my case, it's a matter of me finding time to go sit down with Kevin and the Defuniak. And I guarantee you, sometimes I just don't have time.
Well, I agree. Then if you get them to Jason the day of, can Jason put them up?
How does that sound? Is that possible? You can do whatever you want.
I mean, I can submit them as soon as I get a PDF made of them to Jason. I don't know what the requirements are for publishing. I don't.
we get them by noon, we said that we have that time to travel and to set up the.
I mean, we got.
So by noon of the day of the
Problem with
meeting,
that is I'm printing maps, hard copies, and that takes me a couple of hours, if not more.
yeah.
I mean,
So yes,
We're gonna try
we're
hard.
gonna try it as long as they're in by noon, the day that we possibly can.
Again, I want to say I appreciate being on Zoom. Unfortunately, I'm the only one that doesn't speak well for the county. But anyway, we'll do the best we can for Defuniak. People do not have 11C online, so maybe if they could put it up, you'll have that for the Defuniak meeting. At least people will see that. So thank you. And I understand what you're saying, Gary. I know you have a real job. So thank you.
Can I ask one question, because I'm getting mixed input different people who are wanting to talk to me. Jim, since you're with the FUNIAC, Freeport, are the cities, Freeport and the FUNIAC, do you want to all be in one district or not be in one district, or do you care?
I don't know that I necessarily have a. Here, if it's one or two, I wouldn't want three, but I could live with two. The perfect world one is the perfect world, I would think, but.
Now, Gary, you were the one that brought that up.
I did. I did. And people have called me and wanted to talk to me about that.
From either of the.
I actually went back and did another map just to take care of what you want.
Right, and I did too, so I don't mean to be saying that, I just know that I've had comments. For example, Freeport, there's that little section that I guess it's Owl's Head that jumps out from 331.
That's already inside the city limits, that's annexed in, right?
And then the FUNIAC has this weird finger that goes down. Yeah. And it may not change anything. I was just wanting to hear, I've heard from two different sets of people telling me they want it all in one and they don't want it all in one. So I just wondered what the thought is, if anybody else had heard anybody commenting.
Again, what we have to be concerned with is numbers.
Right.
I agree with you that we've got to get these numbers as close as we can to keep from any kind of complication. And if we don't do that, we've not done our job.
Yeah, and that's increasingly difficult as we cull through these maps.
Yeah.
And with that being said, it looks like it's gonna have to have three districts touch south of the bay to make it happen.
Yeah.
I agree with you,
It's not
Dan,
gonna happen any other way.
but I think you can have two self-contained districts plus one section.
And can I say something?
Absolutely.
On 11C, if I were a county commissioner in one or two, I would prefer this. And I haven't spoken to either one of them, and I'm not speaking for them by any means. But if, like we talked about a while ago, if I had to drive from the state line all the way down when we were splitting them left and right instead of top and bottom, that's my opinion. I know that this map needs work, a little bit of work, but to me, I would prefer to stay in one general area and not be sent, all the way from top to bottom.
Well, and actually that map is the reason I asked the question, because you have this little thing that juts out here, but then you have this area of 20 that becomes part of 3, and it would seem to me, if you didn't have to have all of the city within one district, it'd make more sense to make this 3 and this 1. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then you're using a road that's clearly.
Yeah.
And at this time, there's less than 300. I would speculate less than 300 citizens in either of those that you just pointed out.
I mean, like over here, you're talking about like Adley Bruner and the people over at Dismal Creek. And up here, I don't know, does anybody live in?
Not yet.
Allentown?
Not yet.
No, but the signs were up when we drove to Freeport last time. If anybody noticed, they have brand new signs up.
Yeah, there's a few little areas like that I think you could, the other one somebody brought up, it doesn't matter on this map, but this finger here is kind of strange on the FUNIAC. So I'm just wondering if the majority of the city was all in one district, is it gonna cause anybody down in shape? Is but they have some little strange cutout like that it doesn't.
I reckon we would have to ask whoever runs FUNIAC, see how they like it. Right now, it's 2 different districts, right now, or 3.
Yeah. Well, and that's not such a big deal as this is the one that caught my eye, was these 2 things. And we're talking about very few people.
just
This one
minor
doesn't-
cleanups that
Everything
aren't
in the
really
blue
gonna
is
change
in.
the numbers, but
Yeah,
Unless
I
I'm
think we
looking
can
at
no
it.
one is, if no one lives there
Yeah.
either.
This one needs tweaking. but I
so
I think it's the best option so far.
going forward, leaving here, we're with 3 maps. And we'll pick up, who knows how many next meeting, which, Mr. McIntyre, where is the next meeting?
And the Puniac Springs, sir.
Good job.
I can remember that.
Thank you. So our next meeting in 2 weeks will be in the Puniac Springs. So whatever ends up being new considerations for that meeting, we'll go through. But I'm hoping that when we leave that meeting, we're going to have a very few
That's right.
with good contiguity, good population numbers, and we can then start working on the fine tuning.
Patrick, let's discuss. If any of us want to do another map to bring up, let's just do one map. Let's don't do 3 or 4. Pick out your best idea and bring it up at the next one.
That's what I did. I made one with Mr. Laird and then I took it home and studied it. And then I brought it back to him and told him what I wanted. I don't like this, I don't like that. And instead of submitting it, I asked for it not to be submitted. And we changed it from A to B. And so he still has it. He
Yeah.
still has A, but I asked for it not to be submitted and only submit B.
Well, I mean, I like on this one, I'll go ahead and tell you, I'm gonna ask that we move this into 3 and this into 1. So this would be purple and this would be pink.
You can just get with Kevin on that.
Yeah, so Kevin.
Do you still want to do your,
Which map are you looking at, Gary?
that one?
Eleven
Make this
C.
pink, make this
What's it moving?
purple.
Nobody's in on that, right?
Not yet.
And while we're at it.
Well,
If
we
we all
tried-
want 2 houses in there. that's
I
good.
guess that's
They were gonna set
See,
it
the
up
problem
on one
here is
side, yeah.
that block.
But
this spot.
when we go, yeah, when we go down from three.
Gotta go to the cave up there. Come in and buy it out.
Yeah, at, well, how about when you swap these 2, that's gonna take care of this stuff in here.
Yes, sir.
It won't change the numbers.
Any public comments before we adjourn? Ms. Scott?
Yes, I'm just noticing, it appears that the population is shifting in the county, that south of the bay could end up. Unless we go south. I believe that's the option that we have, we're allowing either 5 or 7.
I think that's a county,
You would,
county charter.
you would know,
That has to go to the state.
well, you would have to have the electorate, you'd have to be on the ballot, and we'd have to vote to do it,
To do 7.
you know.
But I mean, it appears like what you're saying, that we're not gonna be able to get 2 only districts south of the bay without another one touching it. It appears we're moving in that direction, where there's gonna be 3 south of the bay at the 2030 census and 2 north of the bay. And maybe at
Well,
that
but
time, we
not
try for 7.
necessarily, because remember, Freeport is exploding right now.
I know.
And also St. Joe plans on building, they're gonna build a bridge across the intercoastal, and that area between the intercoastal and the river is gonna be massively developed.
Well, I know
And-
there's a lot going on in the St. Joe area as well.
Right, so we don't know in 10 years, but I suspect in 10 years, this county is gonna look a whole lot different than it does now.
Well, if you listen to their mobility plan and all the stuff they're putting toward that, St. Joe was projected 6,000 on that end. Freeport was projected 15,000. So.
You would believe the number of houses going up in Diffusion.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of growth. The biggest problem to me, looking at this struggling is you have 3 big holes
Yeah,
where the population is 0, and it's never going to be anything other than 0.
right. Mhm.
And so it makes these maps, I mean, like, let's take the way this one looks on 3, it looks like geographically it's huge. But really, all of it is going to be above 90, except for right here. And a little bit over here along the river, and otherwise there's no one there.
The 3, you're talking about Eglin Reservation, and then maybe like.
Nagusi and the Water Management District.
And No Coos Plantation.
Right, and then you get down here where the rivers are,
Delta, yeah.
and there's nothing there either.
That's water management area.
Yeah,
most of it.
that's all state and Nature Conservancy.
And even south of the bay, when you start looking south of the bay, it's like 48% of all the land south of the bay is state park or state forest. So it's always going to be 0 too.
Well,
Or the ones of us that live down there hope that it's gonna be 0.
yes, we're pushing for that to be 0.
There's not a guarantee of that.
I do, that's not even in perpetuity.
Well, we can only, I think we all agree that the county will be way different in 10 years, but we can't deal with that right now.
No, I know we can't deal with that now, but if we had to go from 5 to 7 districts, at what point do we assess that and move that forward?
That would
Like
be a big onerous, if you read the statute on how that occurs, it's kind of like when somebody wanted to make South Walton the municipality, the hoops that you would have to jump through. I don't see it being politically viable anytime in the near future.
Are there any counties that y'all can think of in, I'd say, west of Tallahassee that have a 7-member county commission?
I think so.
I don't know.
I don't think, other than a few in South Florida and Jacksonville, I don't know that there are any.
Yeah, there is somewhere in the state.
Yeah,
I
that's,
was doing trying to look up stuff to get an idea of what we're really supposed to be doing.
I think,
And they talked about that in the
I think,
little tutorial that I found.
I think
I
Dave,
mean,
Broward
if we
and
continue
and
squeezing
Duval
the
counties
districts
are.
south of the bay, right? Because that's where the population is. So if we continue squeezing those, I mean, we could end up having 2 districts north of the bay touching south of the bay. So
Well, right now we have 3.
Yeah,
Right now we have 3.
but I think what you're gonna find is based
Three.
on the growth. Based on the growth that's,
5 goes north of the bay too?
based on the growth that's projected right now, in the next 10, certainly in the next 20 years, you're gonna find the area that's north of the intercoastal and north of the bay to be at least as populous as south of the bay. That area is projected to grow tremendously. I mean, what may ultimately happen when that gets fully grown out is you may see one of the districts south of the bay having part of the area north.
That makes more sense, but seeing how the population is and where we know the explosion is gonna be over the next few years.
Ms. Morano, before we leave and pull the plug on this, did you have any further comments?
No, I want to thank everyone for their time and all those who contributed maps. It's greatly appreciated. I think more public needs to come out and see the effort you're doing. So thank you all very much.
Committee, anything else? Nothing else? We're adjourned. Thank you.